Hi, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is where you are, or whatever time you're watching this. Today, I thought that we could have a relaxing afternoon. I have a cup of tea here. This is just an herbal stress relief tea. It's got like lavender and other great herbs to help you relax and unwind. And I always like these little cards. This one says, "Trust creates peace." So I'm going to be drinking some tea today. I also thought maybe I'd light this candle. This is a lavender candle that I got at my local grocery store, and it also has CBD in it. And I was really interested in the idea of a CBD candle. I don't understand how that would work if you like inhale the CBD through like the smoke of the candle. But I'm really obsessed with it. I love the way it smells, and I think that the idea of a CBD candle just gives it like an extra oomph where I'm like, oh, extra relaxation. So I'm going to give this a light as well so we can have the ultimate relaxing afternoon. I just have a lighter here. So for the main portion of this video, I thought that I would give folks a little insight into where the channel name came from. So Tender Buttons ASMR. Tender Buttons comes from the name of a book of poetry by Gertrude Stein, who was an American poet who lived in the early 1900s, and she wrote poetry, she wrote novels, she wrote essays, but she's probably most well known for this book of poetry called Tender Buttons. Tender buttons, tender buttons, which is a book of poetry that is broken down into 3 sections, which are objects, food, and rooms. And essentially it is kind of a meditation and a way of looking at everyday objects. So she writes about, coffee, she writes about different rooms and kind of a domestic house and everyday objects, but she writes in such a way that they become unfamiliar, and a lot of the lines of poetry on first reading don't necessarily seem to make sense or have a logical flow or even really be grammatically correct. And a lot of the work is also really heavily focused on the sound of language and the sound of words. So even with a name like Tender Buttons, we have something like buttons which tend to be hard and maybe made of plastic or metal, juxtaposed with something like the word tender, which means soft or gentle, or in the context of food, like easily cut. So we have, 2 words, 2 opposing textures, 2 opposing ideas, but then we also have the way that the words interact with each other, both being 2 syllables, both having those softer end sounds, tender, button. And so the work of Tender Buttons really looks at the way that language and objects and association all work together to create meaning and create understanding and create context. And I think that the work and the poetry itself really represents a lot of what I like about ASMR, where sometimes it's not necessarily the content, but it's the way that things sound or or the way that things are put together or the way that things are presented. And I thought that these poems would make really great ASMR and really great triggers. So I'm going to be drinking some tea and reading some of that today. I unfortunately don't have a physical copy of the book. Mine is in storage, so I'm going to be reading off an iPad today. I'm sorry. My poetry professor in undergrad and college actually had a first edition copy of Tender Buttons, so like the first time it was published, he had one of the original copies, and that was super cool to see and to hold. But I am just reading off of a PDF. So I'm just going to randomly scroll through and read the ones that catch my fancy, and I hope you enjoy, and I hope that you can kind of appreciate the language and kind of get lost in the sounds and the way that the words interact with each other. This one's called A Box. Out of kindness comes redness, and out of rudeness comes rapid same question. Out of an eye comes research, out of selection comes painful cattle. So then the order is that a white way of being round is something suggesting a pin, and is it disappointing? It is not. It is so rudimentary to be analyzed and see a fine substance strangely. It is so earnest to have a green point, not to red, but point again. A piece of coffee. More of double, a place in no new table. A single image is not splendor. Dirty is yellow, a sign of more in not mentioned. A piece of coffee is not a detainer. The resemblance to yellow is dirtier and distincter. The clean mixture is whiter and not coal color, never more coal color than all together. The sight of a reason, the same sight slighter, the sight of a simpler negative answer, the same sore sounder, the intention to wishing, the same splendor, the same furniture. The time to show a message is when too late and later there is no hanging in a blight. A not torn rosewood color. If it is not dangerous, then a pleasure, and more than any other, if it is cheap, is not cheaper. The amusing side is that the sooner there are no fewer, the more certain is the necessity dwindled. Supposing that the case contained rosewood and a color, supposing that there was no reason for a distress, and more likely for a number supposing that there was no astonishment, is it not necessarily to mingle astonishment? The settling of stationing cleaning is one way not to shatter, scatter, and scattering. The one way to use custom is to use soap and silk for cleaning. The one way to see cotton is to have a design concentrating the illusion and the illustration. The perfect way is to accustom the thing to have a lining and the shape of a ribbon, and to be solid, quite solid in standing, and to use heaviness in mourning. It is light enough in that. It has that shape nicely. Very nicely may not be exaggerating. Very strongly may be sincerely fainting. May be strangely flattering. May not be strange in everything. May not be strange too. just think that the way Gertrude places certain words together is so beautiful, and it's so fun to read out loud. Just the way that certain things feel on the tongue, and words that are usually not said together creates this kind of like new sensation when you're reading it out loud. So it's super fun. Oh my god, my hair almost fell on my tea. Nothing elegant. A charm, a single charm, is doubtful. If the red is rose, and there is a gate surrounding it, if inside is let in, and their places change, then certainly something is upright. It is earnest. This one is called a seltzer bottle. Any neglect of many particles to a cracking, any neglect of this makes around it what is lead in color, and certainly discolor in silver. The use of this is manifold. Supposing a certain time selected is assured, suppose it is even necessary, suppose no other extract is permitted and no more handling is needed, suppose the rest of the message is mixed with a long slender needle, and even if it could be any black border, supposing all this altogether made a dress, and suppose it was actual, suppose the mean way to state it was occasional. If you suppose this in August, and even more melodiously, if you suppose this even in the necessary incident of there certainly being no middle in summer and winter, suppose this and an elegant settlement, a very elegant settlement, is more than of consequence. It is not final and sufficient and substituted. This which was so kindly a present was constant. Cold climate. A season in yellow soled extra string makes lying places. Malachite. The sudden spoon is the same in no size. The sudden spoon is the wound in the decision. An umbrella. Coloring high means that the strange reason is in front, not more in front, behind. Not more in front, a piece of the dot. A petticoat. A light white, a disgrace, an ink spot, a rosy charm. A time to eat. A pleasant, simple, habitual, and tyrannical, and authorized, and educated, and resumed, and articulate separation. This is not tardy. I think I need a bigger table for this. I have a lot going on. Alright. section. So those are all based on different household objects like boxes, coats, stuff like that. And then these are based on different foods. Cranberries. Could there not be a sudden date? Could there not be, in the present settlement of old age pensions, could there not be by a witness, could there be? Count the chain, cut the grass, silence the noon and murder flies. See the basting undip the chart, see the way the kinds are best seen from the rest, from that and untidy. Cut the whole space into 24 spaces, and then is there a yellow color? There is, but it is smelled. It is then put where it is, and nothing stolen. A remarkable degree of red means that a remarkable exchange is made. Climbing altogether is when there is a solid chance of soiling no more than a dirty thing. Coloring all of it in steadying is jelly. Just as it is suffering, just as it is succeeded, just as it is moist, so there is no countering. Milk. A white egg and a colored pan and a cabbage showing settlement, a constant increase. A cold in a nose, a single cold nose makes an excuse. Two are more necessary. All the goods are stolen, all the blisters are in the cup. Cooking is the recognition between sudden and nearly sudden very little, and all large holes. A real pint is that is open and closed, and in the middle is so bad. Tender colds, seen eye holders, all work, the best of change, the meaning, the dark red, all this and bitten, really bitten. Guessing again, and gulfing again, and the best men, the very best men. Apple. Apple plum, carpet steak, seed clam, colored wine, calm scene, cold cream, best shake, potato, and no gold work with pet. A green scene is called bake, and change sweet is bready. A little piece, please. A little piece, please. Cane again to the presupposed and ready eucalyptus tree. Count out sherry and ripe plates and little corners of a kind of ham. This is use. It's kind of making me hungry, not gonna lie. The one about cranberries low-key had me thinking about cranberry bread. So maybe I'll go get ingredients and make some after that, and who knows, maybe write my own Tender Buttons inspired poem about it. I have been trying meditation just for my own mental health care, and one of the things I've been focusing on is staying in the present moment. I am very, very floaty as a person. I'm really easily distracted, and so one thing I've been doing is trying to, when I'm in a room, name objects and really recognize them in the current moment and notice their detail and try to notice things about them that I maybe wouldn't have noticed before if I wasn't paying active attention in the current moment. And I think this kind of work by Stein is, in a way, a practice of that, and kind of thinking about everyday life and everyday experience in a radically new way, and really being alive and appreciative of that, I find to be very helpful and inspiring, and even part of kind of a meditative practice. So if you're looking for more ways to be present in the world, maybe try, writing a poem like this, and take an object around you and describe it in a way that it's unrecognizable and, rendered foreign. I think that is a really cool exercise, both if you're a writer and you want to strengthen writing skills, but also just to help us as esoteric, floaty souls be more present and more grounded in the physical world. This is one of my favorites. It's called Rhubarb. Rhubarb is Susan, not seat, in bunch toys, not wild and laughable, not in little places, not in neglect, and vegetable, not in fold, coal age, not please. Single fish. Single fish, single fish, single fish, eggplant, single fish sight. A sweet wind, and not less noisy than saddle, and more ploughing, and nearly well painted by little things so. Please shade it a play. It is necessary, and besides the large sort is puff. Every way Oakley, please prune it near. It is so found, it is not the same. Custard. Custard is this. It aches when, not to be narrowly. This makes a whole little hill. It is better than a little thing that has mellow, real mellow. It is better than lakes, whole lakes. It is better than seeding. Butter. Boomin', butter. Leave a green and show it. I spy. It is a need that a flower, a state flower. It is a need that a state rubber. It is a need that a state rubber is sweet and sight and swelled a stretch. It is a need that state rubber. Wood a supply. Clean little keep a strange on it. Make a little white, no and not with pit on in within. When she uses several words that start with the same consonant, like it is a need that is a state rubber, is sweet and a sight and a swelled stretch. Sweet and sight and a swelled stretch. That's called alliteration. Alliteration. Sweet and sight and a swelled stretch. Sweet and sight and a swelled stretch. Another thing that this book always does to me is when words that are just like common everyday words, when you say a word so much that it starts to not feel like a real word, this is very much like that sensation personified, or like saying your own name over and over again until it doesn't feel like a real thing. This is very much that for me. The struggles of having long hair. She's always in your tea. This is my favorite mug. It's got a cute little bat on it. Here's the last poem in this section. A center in a table. It was away a day, this made some sum. Suppose a cod liver is an oil. Suppose a cod liver oil is tunny. Suppose a cod liver oil tunny is pressed. Suppose a cod liver oil tunny pressed is china and secret with a bestow reed. A reed to be a reed to be, in a reed to be. Next to me, next to a folder some waiter. Next to a folder some waiter and re-letter and read her with her for less. The last section is rooms. And this one's not broken into sections, it's just in paragraph form, so I'll just read whatever paragraphs I kind of land on. Maybe someday I'll do a straight read-through with no breaks. That might be fun as well. Sugar, any sugar, anger, every anger, lover, sermon, lover, center, no distractor, all order is in a measure. Left over to be a lamplight, left over in victory, left over in saving. All this and negligence and bent wood and more, even much more, is not so exact as a pen and a turtle, and even certainly, and even a piece of the same experience as more. Maybe I'll try some whispering in these next sections, and maybe even some just kind of inaudible, getting quieter and quieter and quieter. To consider a lecture, to consider it well is so anxious and so much charity, and really supposing there is green, and if a stubble, every stubble is urgent, will there not be a chance of legality? The sound is sickened, and the price is purchased, and golden, what is golden? A clergyman, a single tax, a currency, and an inner chamber. A plain lap, any plain lap shows that sign. It shows that there is not so much extension as there would be if there were more choice in everything. And why complain of more? Why complain of very much more? Why complain at all when it is all arranged that as there is no more opportunity and no more appeal and not even any more clinching, that certainly now some time has come. A window has another spelling. It has F altogether. It lacks no more than, and this is rain. This may even be something else. At any rate, there is no dedication in splendor. There is a turn of the stranger. Catholic, to be turned is to venture on youth and a section of debate. It even means that no class where each one over 50 is regular is so stationary that there are invitations. Dance, a clean dream, and an extravagant turn-up. Secure the steady rights and translate more than translate the authority. Show the choice and make no more mistakes than yesterday. I'm surprised this lipstick is staying on. And not a ton of it is on my mug either. I think this is an Anastasia Beverly Hills liquid lip. Liquid lip. Liquid lip. I wonder if that's a phrase that Gertrude would have liked, liquid lip. liquid lip, liquid lip, liquid lip, liquid lip, liquid lip. Here is the last paragraph in Tender Buttons. A light in the moon, the only light is on Sunday. What was the sensible decision? The sensible decision was that notwithstanding many declarations and more music, not even notwithstanding the choice and a music, not even notwithstanding the choice and a torch and a collection, notwithstanding the celebrating hat and a vacation and even more noise than cutting. Notwithstanding Europe and Asia and being overbearing, not even notwithstanding an elephant and a strict occasion, not even withstanding more cultivation and some seasoning, not even with drowning and with the ocean being encircling, not even with the more likeness and any cloud, not even with terrific sacrifice of pedestrianism and a special resolution, not even more likely to be pleasing. The care with which the rain is wrong, and the green is wrong, and the white is wrong, the care with which there is a chair and plenty of breathing, the care with which there is incredible justice and likeness, all this makes a magnificent asparagus, and also a fountain. That is just about the end of my tea. I hope that you enjoyed this little break in your day to hear some of my favorite poetry, and I hope that you found some escape in language and in the sound of language. And I think that English, for all of its quirks and all of its flaws and all of its weird rules, really can make some beautiful sounds and beautiful arrangements of words and meanings. And I think that Tender Buttons is a real celebration of that, and part of the reason I named my channel after that book. Thank you for watching. If you have fallen asleep at this point or are just drifting off, sweetest of dreams and a restful rest of the day or night or morning for you. See you soon.